Hello, I'm Richard Hooper and this is SatTV Week. Now I'm pleased to be joined by Doreet from Gilat. Doreet, we've spoken many times before, but you've had a very, very successful year. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and why?
Sure, absolutely, and thanks for having me here again. I'm very happy to be here. This is indeed an exciting year for Gilat. We've had successes in several of our strategic markets. First one is broadband, as is delivered via cellular backhaul, and in our case it's a satellite cellular backhaul. We have achieved great success in this market over the last year, and I actually would like to quote a report that was recently published by NSR, a research group, that talked about this year as being an inflection point or crossing the chasm for satellite backhauling. And they talk about this being the time where satellite backhauling is going into the mainstream, not only for the niche play. And they're quoting several large MNOs around the world that have decided to use satellite backhauling. And they're talking about Sprint in the United States, they're talking about SoftBank in Japan, and EE, Everything Everywhere in the UK. And all of those MNOs that they mention are coincidentally customers of Gilat. So we are very pleased, and of course I'm very proud that the MNOs, the tier 1 MNOs, are using our product for satellite backhauling. As a matter of fact, they're using here this product, Capricorn. This is a member of our SkyEdge 2C family. And Capricorn, this little device here, is the one that is really enabling the very fast LTE performance. We call it true LTE speeds over satellite. So we're talking here about a modem or a VSAT that can give you performance or a user experience like terrestrial and at comparable costs, plus have the advantage of very fast deployment. VSATs are of course very fast to deploy, so in a matter of hours you can deploy a site with a VSAT. So that's a significant benefit of the satellite backhauling. Now, if I go back to the report by NSR, they talk really about three things that are happening that are enabling this crossing the chasm. So they talk about the speed or the user experience. They talk about the cost or the efficiency of using the satellite bandwidth, and they talk about the complexity of deployment. So when we talk about speed, with this product here, Capricorn, we have embedded acceleration. That's the acceleration that overcomes the inherent satellite delay. Now we do this with a patented embedded acceleration that we have here in the product. Now this is very important that it's embedded because that has two advantages. Also, it's lower cost because it's in the same device, but also you have better performance, a better user experience because you don't have packet loss between devices. So we have a better quality of service together with Capricorn. Now, when we talk about efficiency, it's not sufficient to have the high throughput satellites. That's of course a prerequisite to have the lower cost, but you have to be able to utilize the bandwidth effectively. And that is something that we do with the access scheme TDMA, which allows us to share bandwidth and again reduce costs. And the third point in the report that I'd like to point to is the complexity of deployment. And here we're seeing MNOs not needing to deal with the complexity of satellite backhauling because of companies like Gilat that know how to give the end-to-end service. So they don't have to worry. We call it a worry-free network, or we say leave the pain to us, and Gilat can do the end-to-end service of deploying the satellite backhauling, and the skill set in the MNOs doesn't need to grow to include satellite backhauling. So all of this really is exciting in the world of cellular backhaul as we are leading the market now with the tier 1 MNOs in the United States, Europe, and Japan. So that's about the satellite backhauling.
While we're on the topic of cellular backhaul, you also have a small cell solution. What does that actually do?
Sure. As a matter of fact, I just heard yesterday that we won an award in the Small Cell Forum in London, together with Parallel Wireless, for excellent deployment of the small cell in rural areas. Actually, small cells are like cells, but they're small and they're very cost effective to deploy in rural areas where you have smaller communities. And as a matter of fact, in Australia now, in the outback regions in South Australia, they have connectivity now with their mobile phones for the first time with this small cell solution. And ABC shot a TV program interviewing the people there that were so excited, the local people that for the first time could actually surf the web, could go into social media, and also they could, of course, look at weather, everything we all do with our mobile phones. But also not only the local people, but also people traveling through can use maps, can use emergency services. In other words, this was a TV show about how, wow, finally cellular solutions came to the outbacks of Australia. And this is something that is enabled, again, with our small cell, which is called Cell Edge, that we do together with Parallel Wireless. And it is optimized for satellite backhauling, so using for the backhaul, again, this Capricorn device to give the excellent user experience. So we're very pleased also in this world of the small cell where we have made significant progress now deployed in Australia.
The other area of interest to a lot of service providers is in-flight communications, and Gilat again are addressing this sector.
Absolutely, that is another strategic direction of Gilat, in-flight connectivity, and we are excited about this market, and again, great progress this year. As a matter of fact, on May 9th, just a couple weeks ago, we had a very exciting affair with GoGo. GoGo is our customer in the United States. They had an airborne analyst and media event on their test plane, Jimmy Ray, where they invited many customers to experience the fantastic user experience on their commercial flight. Of course, using a variant of this modem, the airborne version of our Aero modem, that gave performance that the whole industry was applauding. If you were on Twitter those days, you could see, wow, best performance ever seen on commercial airlines, 5 times more than the average. So we're very excited about those prospects with GoGo. It's going to be our airborne modem is going to be deployed in over 1,600 aircrafts, over 13 airlines, and this is, of course, a great achievement of our Aero modem. Now, it's not only our Aero modem that we're doing, we actually have a full portfolio of components for in-flight connectivity, so it's not only the modem, it's also the transceiver, the bucks, and also the antennas. And recently now at Satellite 2017 in Washington, D.C., we launched our dual band Ka-Ku antenna, airborne antenna. They can switch between these bands, and as a matter of fact, it does this seamless beam switching between beams of the high throughput satellites and between satellites on long journeys. You have a user experience that doesn't show the user that there's any switching of beams. It's totally transparent. Now, this antenna of Gilat's, though, is unique in the industry because it can work with any other equipment, with any other service. It is not dependent on a specific service. So, of course, works also with our modem, but it can work also with competing modems. And as a matter of fact, our competitor Hughes is using also our antenna. And at Satellite in Washington, we had a joint launch where Hughes' modems was talked about using the antenna of Gilat. So we are very pleased with our antenna that is really agnostic to the underlying VSAT technology.
Now, we're sitting in Asia, and you've had some successes in Asia recently. Can you tell me a little bit more?
Sure. Well, I mentioned the cellular backhaul in success with SoftBank, that's in Japan. And I mentioned the Cell Edge, the small cell in Australia, that's also in the region here. But in addition, I'd like to mention China. In China, recently, the satellite, the HTS satellite, ChinaSat 16, was launched. This is the first HTS satellite in China, which speaks a lot to the potential in China and the interest in satellite broadband connectivity in China. And they are a customer of ours and are using our equipment for their ground segment for fixed and mobile applications. So that's another milestone that has been achieved now in China in this region. Of course, there's other countries and other stories that I'm not exactly allowed to talk about, but there's a lot happening in this region, and it's a very exciting time for satellite backhauling and satellite connectivity in general, also in the IFC market and other enterprise and broadband markets. And of course, Gilat is very pleased to be in the forefront of that.
Doreet, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me again.